Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Forum. I am Joseph Feaster, your host, and today we're going to be talking about the country of Haiti. And we're going to be discussing the history, the political turmoil, the tragedy, and the perseverance of the people of Haiti. I have three great guests with me today, but I first wanted to bring up the map to just give you a perspective as to where Haiti sits in the West Indies. It is a country which was part of what was defined as Hispaniola and now divided into two parts, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And we will have much conversation about the relationship between Haitians and Dominican Republic persons throughout this program. But before going into the specifics, I want to introduce my great guests who have joined me today in order to assist with providing this information to all of you who are viewing it today. I have first Marie St. Fleur, a dear friend of mine, a former state representative from the Dorchester District of Boston. She was a senior advisor to Boston Mayor Tom Menino, a position she has just recently left, and presently is the president and CEO of Bessie Tart Wilson Initiative for Children. So welcome.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Next to her is attorney Brian Concanon Jr., who is the director of the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti. And to my far left is Bishop Nicolas Omasil, who is the bishop of the church Voice of the Gospel Tabernacle located in Mattapan. So to all of you, welcome, and thank you for joining me today to talk about some of the issues that are involved with Haiti historically as well as presently. And I just would like to start by just setting the framework. And while I've done my homework for this show, I don't want to consider myself an expert on Haiti's politics and all. Any one of the three of you or the three of you chiming in, if you could just give a backdrop as to the political history of Haiti and starting from, as I read, I know Christopher Columbus did his exploration in 1492, but nonetheless, Haiti has had a very vibrant political history during its formation. So any of you want to be the history teacher today on the program?
I'll take a stab at it. So thank you so very much for taking the time to talk about Haiti, because after the earthquake, it's not as prominent to find people talking about Haiti and what's going on the island. As you know, yes, Christopher Columbus did land on the island of Haiti. At the time, they were the Indians, whether the Taino Indians. It was populated by Taino Indians. Of course, they were used at that time as the source of labor for the island. And then after, somewhere in the 1600s, and I don't want the historical buffs to call me, but there was a brother named Bartholomew, because the Indians were dying and they needed more labor. He suggested that they go to Africa and find more labor. And that is how Africans began to be transported to that island. The island was first inhabited, he was sent there by Portugal, right? Then because he was an exploration to find the New World for Queen Isabella, 1490, that's why he was out there doing his work. And subsequent to that, Spain Spain colonized. The British were there just quickly, and then of course the French. And the French had the most impact on the development of Haiti. The French came, just going real quickly, was very, the slavery there was, it was, I don't know the word to describe
very
it.
Pronounced.
Yes. Yes. And so then, of course, as you know, there was a number of attempts for freedom. You know, I mean, I always compare when Bookman and Boacaima which was when a number of the slaves, they weren't Haitians at the time.
Right.
They were slaves from all the various islands in the Caribbean that came together in order to try to pull together an insurrection. Subsequent to that, it's always linked it back to the United States. Nat Turner. I mean, if you look
Yes.
at the history, we're also linked together, which began this whole process of us all trying to get free. And so the insurrection occurred. It failed. We had a number of attempts, and finally in 1802, we had success. And as part of that success, what led to some of that success, and I always like to connect again, is that if you recalled, Bonaparte was in charge of making certain that we could secure the island for France. Bonaparte was not successful. He began, after a number of attempts to control.
Just for the audience, we're talking about Napoleon
Bonaparte.
Yes.
And as you know, and I'm running through this really quickly now.
Oh, yeah. You're doing great.
So you know that they ran out of money. France was really trying to maintain it because it was the Pearl of the Antilles. It was the colony that produced the most for France, and actually in terms of indigo, cotton, sugar, you name it. That was what was really fueling a lot of France's economy at the time. And so they wanted to keep it. And so in order to do that, Bonaparte, having lost a lot of men fighting these black folks, they didn't expect to have such fight in them, had to convince his queen or to sell his rights to properties here. That whole, what do we call it? It is the New Orleans, Mississippi. There's a name for that whole section of the United States. That the Louisiana Purchase. The Louisiana Purchase was the Louisiana was a direct result of that. They needed money. They sold it, and they were able to use money to continue to fuel their war against the Africans on that island. They lost, and of course we got the whole other part of America that we now know, if you look at the history books, that was purchased in the Louisiana Purchase. And so now that turbulent time didn't stop. You know that unfortunately the slaves and then the freedmen, and I won't go back into the whole color issue that existed there because.
But 1804 was the actual date of independence. 1804
was the actual date of independence. Mm-hmm. You had Toussaint Louverture,
yes.
Who was an amazing strategist, soldier, and was able to lead us to that. But you had a lot of you had a lot of tension, yes. Because you had the mulattoes, les gens de couleur, you had the black slaves. They came together in interest in order to put out the French, but not everybody was in agreement with it. And so subsequent to that, you know that he was betrayed and they took him back and he died in France.
In fact, it wasn't during his turn, because he began
yes.
the issues of the
yeah.
independence. It wasn't under him, because that was about 1801, 1802.
1802.
And then 1804 is exactly when independence was, and I forgot who.
Dessalines would
yes.
have
yeah.
come in and completed. Is that correct? I might be factually correct.
I think that's all great.
Yeah,
yes.
so it might be, yeah, so, but tell me if I'm wrong, Bishop.
You're right,
I learned all of this sitting here.
He's watching you intently, I can assure you.
This is all my father talking, by the way, because I went to school here, so this is where I got it.
Well, let me just stop you there just for one moment,
mm-hmm.
because I wanted to, the reason why I do that is to let people get a rich sense of, because majority of the viewing audience, and many of us, I mean, I spent time doing some of the reviews, so I'm familiar with much of what you've talked about. But the reality is, we don't know the history. We don't even know our own history. So when I bring guests on, I want them to help put folks in that perspective. And I'm sure, Bishop, you can definitely give some history on that as well. And at some point during the program, I will go through the political aspects in terms of from 57 with Papa Doc and bringing us forward. But I just want to go to now. You do much with working with the Haitian people on the ground and in the country, and I'd like yes. to begin to move in that direction to have you talk to us a little bit about what has transpired. And you can start from whatever point you want, but certainly either working back from from any of the hurricanes or either the earthquake, because there have been several the earthquake was not the only calamity that affected Haiti.
Yes.
There has been many. So if you could just give us a sense of the people, the culture, the tragedies that they have endured, that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me here, and thanks again. Well, the history of the Haitian people, what Mr. Saint-Fleur was saying, is true, and the history of the tragedy, one after the others, it's a thing that not only break the country down, but also the people's lives. On my personal views, I see the country of Haiti being very mistreated or neglectful. When you look at every other countries after some kind of tragedy, it doesn't take them an eternal time to regain the strength, to rebuild, and for the people to return back to their normal life. When you look at Haiti, tragedy after tragedy, one in the top of the others, and you don't see no relief, no true relief. And after the earthquake, there was a tremendous amount of money who could rebuild the country, the island completely. But up to now, you're finding people still, yes, being told they have some progress, and I've been in the country. And I've been in Cap-Haïtien. I work with the people in Haiti as well as Haitian here in this state. But the misery, the neglectful of these people, it is something you cannot explain from where it starts. And the earthquake breaking the people down, the houses, and you still find people live under the tent. You still have, what I find it's a big shame, even the National Palace still not built yet. The courthouses, all the government building, most of them is still on the master plan.
Can I just want to chime in just to put a factual perspective in here. First and foremost, the epicenter of the earthquake in 2010, yes. Which was about a 7 point on the Richter scale, the magnitude
yes.
of it, which was, enormous.
Enormous, yes.
But the epicenter of that was close to the capital, Port-au-Prince. Mm-hmm. The country itself, as I read, is 2/3 of it is mountain.
Mm-hmm. It's mountain.
So when you start talking about relief efforts and all, you're talking about a small, and I believe, I forgot exactly the state to which the reference was made to in terms of the size of what Haiti's would be to a state here in the United States.
It's about the size of Maryland.
Maryland. I was going to say that that was we talked about earlier. I was going to say Maryland, but I didn't want to be incorrect on that. But yes, that's what I did read. It was Maryland. But also, the count that now that they're saying in terms of the loss of life was somewhere between 46,000 to 85,000. I guess the original thoughts were maybe yes. as high as 230,000. But the reason why I wanted to chime in, Bishop, and just interject it is that once again to put folks into where the epicenter is, that we're talking about where people populate is not the major part of the island because it is mountainous. So what's been, why is there the difficulty? And again, I want to look at it in light of Katrina. I want to look at it, in light of what just recently happened in the Philippines. I want to look at it in that what happened in Indonesia.
Indonesia, yes.
And if you know what has been the relief efforts, because even, again, I'm familiar, at least from my readings, that former President Clinton was to be one of the major architects of trying to help with the rebuilding. So with that being said, let's put the viewing audience in perspective as to what is going on. I mean, in more graphic details, you've been very kind as a bishop in terms of relating it that people are being affected by the tragedy, but let's put it in the context. Let's speak real about what is happening for the international community, because I do understand that billions of dollars were delivered.
Yes. Uh, the question everybody is asking, that's what you ask, what is happening? That's where we all have. That's a question we all have. That's a question I've been asked myself. What is happening? The international community, the U.S., the government in place, what's happened? Where is that barrier or that blockage who stopped the country to move on after all this? Which part is being neglected their responsibility? This is a question no one can answer. And what I personally say sometimes, I don't feel that the international community, the U.S. government, as much as they say they love Haiti, it is a strategy. I remember the former President Ronald Reagan says Haiti is a strategic corner for the U.S. They're not going to turn their back against it. But I don't see that word going forward because I find that this country is very neglected. From one point or the other, who is responsible? Either the wrong choice of the U.S. government when they select, because no presidents elected in Haiti truly with 100% choice of the people. So because of that, is it because they're choosing the wrong leaders, or they're choosing the people who would just listen to them? Or do they really choosing the people who love the country, who could do something for the people of Haiti?
Well, I want to come to Brian, because after the aftermath of the most recent, or the 2010 earthquake, there was a significant outbreak of cholera that took place. And I know that some of the work, Brian, that you and your organization do, and maybe you want to elaborate specifically on what you are doing in the country, are to address that particular concern. So could you speak to that a bit?
Sure, and a lot of these are related. Mm-hmm. The cholera actually isn't, in terms of the disease, isn't that related to the earthquake, because it didn't happen from the earthquake, although the earthquake created some of the conditions that made cholera able to spread so easily. But going back to a little bit to what Pastor Nicholas was saying that I think is very important, is that it's very hard to find out where the earthquake money was spent. And everybody blames the Haitian government, but the reality is that less than 10% of the earthquake money that's been delivered has gone to the Haitian government. It's also important to note that over half of the aid that was promised has not ever been dispersed. And what you have is a situation where you have programs that were designed in Washington or New York or Paris that might have made sense in New York or Boston or Paris, but they didn't really survive contact with Haitian reality. And Haitians weren't brought into the process either to manage it or to design it, and things just aren't working. And that's kind of predictable. And I think that's a problem throughout history where people from outside of Haiti are deciding what needs to be done in Haiti without consulting and involving Haitians. And in the cholera example, cholera came to Haiti. It was brought by UN peacekeepers who came from a country where there was a cholera epidemic, and everybody knew there was a cholera epidemic there. Everyone knew that Haiti was vulnerable to cholera, even though Haiti had never had cholera in its history, which is very rare for a country in this hemisphere. So something about Haiti had always made it less likely to get cholera. But when these soldiers came in, they were placed at a base that was right by a river, and the human waste from the base was directly pumped into the top of Haiti's largest river system. And it wasn't like a pipe broke. This was the system was doing it for weeks or months.
Definitely, yes.
And it was inevitable that in that situation you'd have cholera. Cholera spread throughout Haiti. It's killed over 8,000 people officially. It's still killing. We're now about the third anniversary of the cholera epidemic, and it's still killing about 1,000 people a year.
It is not a rumor, just people say. People seen with a big tank empty at the river. And then the people died it seems to be no one cares. And they still, the UN still doesn't take responsibility to say, yes, they are the one who caused it. You see? And it is only in Haiti that could happen. Yes.
Well, taking into account, I mean, obviously, those of us who deal with in the political world definitely understand exactly how some of these things come about. And once again, I was doing a little bit of the historical walkthrough the local government or the government in Haiti from different times. And obviously, many of our viewing audience would be familiar with certain names as Papa Doc and Baby Doc and the time frames from, and that goes back to about 1957 and long reigns and things that took place, and Jean Bertrand Aristide and Preval and all of the different presidents over the time and the turmoil. Do you think that that political climate also engendered some of what's happening now in terms of some of the neglect, some of the non-action, if you would, for the UN and the U.S.? Can we talk about that a little bit?
I think it absolutely does. I think that there's a history that has to be overcome around Haiti. And I always say that you were the first free black republic, and you took that in the middle of the slavery, the whole move towards slavery in this country, and I think it put America in a very tough place to have this small country, this black country, create itself all of a sudden out of slaves, when at the same time we were trying to hold people in bondage here. You know that between and so the relationship, if you go back and you take a look at the relationship, even at the birth of this country with the United States, it's always been a very tough relationship as a result of that. And the Southern Bloc was never appreciative, of Haiti. I think Jesse Helms said it would never. It's still. I think Helms went to his grave, never recognizing that this was a country worthy of worth. And you know that from, I think it was 1915 to 1934.
34, yeah.
We were America occupied Haiti.
Yes.
I mean, and so then subsequent to that, there was a junta put in place. Okay. The junta that led to the junta. We were very much involved in the creation of that junta. When you look at the history, we're very much involved in the creation of that junta. And then from that, we then moved into Duvalier. Now, we knew for years, but again, it was the strategic location. You had the whole Bay of Pigs. You know, you have to think about that whole history, what was happening here. We needed Cuba, what was happening in Cuba. We did not want to see what was happening in Cuba happening on that island.
And just to give folks another geography lesson in terms of the proximity of Haiti to Cuba, is it's right next door.
Next
So
door.
there's and we're rushing through things. I mean, in a real way, but I think it's worthy to go back and really look at the history. And so there was never really an attempt to really build. But I have to say though, in terms of infrastructure, Haiti is a really agrarian society. That's what it is. And the bulk, you have 2, maybe 3 real centers, which is the Cape Haitian and Port-au-Prince. Port-au-Prince, what happened after Duvalier solidified everything into Port-au-Prince. And there was really no support for the surrounding cities or town. When we left, and when I talk about Americans, when we left, we actually had used the Corps, to build things. I mean, we built bridges, we built roads. We caused some problems too.
So the U.S. Corps of Engineers?
Yes, they did. Yes. They went in and they built. And a lot of the infrastructure that existed, by the way, had never been upgraded by any of the following folks. And so that is what you were relying on. And so you think about something that was built back in the 1915, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then here you are now, never have been maintained correctly. And that's what it is that this earthquake hits it. Earthquakes, floods. I mean, if you think about what happened in Gonaïves, we've had Gonaïves flooded so many times before this, and people dying in it. And it's something amazing. I was in Haiti one year, and we were just about, the rain started pouring down. I was going from Cape Haitian to Port-au-Prince, and they were trying to figure out how to raid it, because I had brought a delegation of my colleagues from the State House. And They were trying to figure out how to get us over a bridge before it all disappeared. Because there's this bridge in Gonaive. If you don't get on there, you can't get. You're done. I mean, it's just amazing. So there are some issues. I mean, we have issues. The same issues. It can't be that we had issues here dealing with. We had to have Civil Rights Act. We had to, and then think that it didn't impact how we related to this country. I think it's false if we don't think that it didn't occur. It has. But at the same time, in the country itself, the Haitians, I don't think, recognize the challenges that they have in dealing with their own class and race issues. And so you have it happening from outside, and you have it happening internally. You don't have, and so the societies are very separated, and you can tell that. And so all of that contributed. The lack of maintenance, the lack of construction and building, the lack of support. The other thing is, after Duvalier, I mean, most family members, my family, left around that time because that was the great exodus. The 50s was a great exodus for many. If they didn't end in the States, they ended up in Africa or in Canada or in other places. Because if you didn't stand, if you weren't for, you were against, and if you were against, then you're not going to be around long. So okay, I'll just put it like that.
Bridge or no bridge.
Bridge or no bridge. So a whole host of our families, our parents, that's what brought them here, and now in terms of the political piece. But what actually then is interesting is that because there was no stable government, NGOs took over. I say Haiti is a country that's been run by NGOs.
Yes, national.
It's
non-governmental
organizations.
Yes.
So it's like nonprofits, each with their own agenda, each with, I believe they got the silver bullet and they're going to change the world. And there's no infrastructure in the country to absorb anything that they're bringing in or to manage
No
it.
regulation.
Well,
and no regulations.
Let me just go, because I want to go to Brian for 1 minute, because always want to speak to the lawyers about it, and I know you're a lawyer as well, an attorney representative, but nonetheless, in this particular case, because he has an institute that's set up, and I know we talked about the cholera, what else are you trying to address in terms of providing addressing any legal redresses at all, Brian? What exactly other things are you doing?
One interesting way of tying in your question about infrastructure with what Marie was talking about in terms of the Duvalier case. We're working on the prosecution of Jean-Claude Duvalier. He came back to Haiti 2 years ago, and we go through lots of very sad documents about families massacred and just really people kept in political prisons for, till they died of tuberculosis. But the saddest document I've ever read in the case is actually from Haiti's Minister of Finance just after Duvalier left. Because what he did was he calculated all the money that Duvalier stole, and he said, with this, we could have put so many 100,000 kids through school. We could have built clean water so you wouldn't have contagious diseases. And just the lack of a government that was providing the basic government services that any successful government has was so fatal to Haiti, and I agree that we're still paying that cost. And that's what we're trying to do with the cholera case. So the UN is clearly responsible, and as Pastor Nicholas said, needs to take responsibility. We filed a claim on behalf of 5,000 cholera victims with the UN itself. The UN said no, it wasn't going to accept that claim. So now last month we went into federal court in the US to try to force the UN to accept responsibility and to put in the clean water and sanitation infrastructure that you need so people don't get cholera, so they're not dying from dying of a drink of water. And it's important. It's important, the Duvalier case is important within Haiti. I think you need to set a precedent against public corruption and political violence, but you also need to set a precedent that the international community has to be responsible as well. And as both Marie and Pastor Nicholas have talked about, that it's not just a Haitian problem. There's certainly problems generated within Haiti, but for at least 4 centuries, we've had problems in Haiti that are generated from outside. And I think it's important for all of us to work on that aspect too.
Bishop, as far as the efforts that you're doing, both from a religious standpoint, but also being an icon within the community in Boston, are there some efforts that you're utilizing using the church community and Haitians who are in the United States in order to try to organize to provide that type of relief and type of support?
Yes, indeed. I have people here in the United States as well as in Haiti. also in Dominican Republic, because the situation is so intense. So one person cannot do it. You have to have like a coalition. And to do those work I'm doing, it takes me to have people on the ground in Haiti, people in Dominican Republic, as well as mobilize people in my church to do this. And it is very crucial that those efforts being handled by the Haitian who concerned, first of all. Because when, let's say, for instance, when you go into Dominican Republic, you see the situation of how Haitians live. It is terrible. What prompted me to start the effort working in Dominican Republic, I went about 6 years ago, and my nephew who lives in Washington, he met his girlfriend in Washington also, and her descent is Dominican, so they decide to go in Puerto Plata to get married. While I was there, and I see a very young boy, 12 years old, and he came to me to ask me to clean my shoes, and he spoke Spanish. And I looked at him, I said, you speak Creole? He said, yes. I said, how you get there? He says, someone brought me there. I said, where do you live? He said, I have no place. I sleep wherever I get in broken home or broken cars. And I could hold myself. I broke in tears. He didn't have proper clothing. He didn't have nothing in his feet. And it's a little box made with cotton bud and a little piece of wood. And if he made one, when he cleaned your shoes, if you give him $1, another big guy beat him up and took it from him. And that's the situation every time I go to this country. I see plenty young Haitian up there. So I don't particularly blame Dominican government. I blame Haitian government.
But let me just move to a point, because there's something that happened recently
Yes.
in Dominica, which I want us to spend some time talking about. And recently there was the High Court in Dominica, which in essence, and I'm going to paraphrase it, that that anyone who was born after 1929, I believe is the time, then they will not be considered citizens of Dominica, particularly if they have African descent, if they were Haitian or otherwise. So they may be living in, may have been born in, whatever, but if they're after 1929, whether they were born in Dominica or not, they would not be considered Dominican citizens. Talk to me about that. Yeah. Talk to me about, again, we talked about, put it again for the viewing audience, that we're saying that this is an island, Hispaniola, Haiti is on the western end, Dominican Republic on the eastern end. It is connected. There's been the back and forth. There's one that's a little bit richer than the other, not that either is doing great. Haiti is more mountainous than in terms of Dominica, but nonetheless, we now have a situation where at least it was a going back and forth that was permitted, and what we now have is, beside the political, because this is not the first time that this has happened, but this is underwritten by the courts now by saying if you were not born before 1929, you can no longer be a Dominican citizen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tragedy. I mean, it's a real tragedy because for the most part, it's an old struggle between when the Dominicans celebrate their Independence Day, they're celebrating their independence from Haiti. So let's just put it in perspective that way. So therefore, you can and so the story goes forward. And what has happened over the years that the Dominican Republic used to allow, and there are a lot of issues. You know, we had dictators, they had dictators, and so we were colonized, and then they were colonized as well. I mean, the Spanish was there for a long time until they got, and then we took, then the Guayabo, I believe, bought the two islands, the two halves of the islands back together again, and then they were able to win their independence. But most Haitians have Dominicans as family members, which is the interesting thing. I don't know a family who's Haitian who doesn't, you do, and in fact, particularly if you're in the north, you have some level of Spanish that you speak because there's always this back and forth. So it's an interesting dilemma that we find ourselves. So back in the 1990s, the Dominican government. I can't remember. Balaguer, I think, was probably was the president at the time, and he instituted these registries. These where you would go in, you'd have to show your birth certificate, and they would determine what level of citizenship if you fit into. And if you were of Haitian descent, now I want to be clear, these are not Haitian citizens. They are Dominican citizens. They were born in the Dominican Republic.
Yes.
Okay? And so, but they are of Haitian or of African descent.
Yes.
And so, they would begin to qualify them as citizen and residents in transit. So therefore that was the beginning. They were residents in transit. They're not quite citizens. And little by little, now you then have to come to this registry to show your documentation. Now, little by little, moving into this new Danilo, I guess, during Danilo's time, they now started to say the registry started to just not renew the citizenship documents when they showed up. And also, so this woman took them.
And that's what was the lawsuit.
That was the lawsuit. This woman, and so the registration is your birth certificate.
Yes.
So imagine every 90 days having to show your birth certificate in order to be registered as a citizen of the United States. I want somebody to imagine that. And then how do you run a country? And so what's that about? So there's this woman who actually, I think Dominique Pierre might be her name, she's a Dominican. She went to register her papers. She brought her birth certificate. They found out that
and I think she was looking to be married.
She was born, yeah.
Yes, she was looking to be married.
Yeah,
getting a marriage certificate.
Yeah. So she was born in the Dominican Republic, but her parents were not, and they would not give her her papers, and so they filed a suit, and that is how the tribunal apparently has been able to move into now, essentially providing precedent to suggest that, and it said it. They now they have instructed the registries to comb the registries to find any person of Haitian descent or African descent, because you can get caught in there and not be Haitian, of Haitian descent, who was born after 1929 and who came into that country after 1929.
Isn't it interesting that they use the date of the Depression?
I think that is exactly, yeah. I thought that was, and so that is what. Now, there is outrage around this because it really is creating a human rights crisis because you now have all these folks who are in limbo. They're not Haitians. Most of them don't even speak Haitian Creole or French. They speak Spanish. They're not Haitians, they're not Dominicans. They can't travel outside of the Dominican Republic. They have no papers. So if they wanted to take a trip someplace, they can't go. They're professionals who were engineers and physicians. That's why it's such a fuss now, because what's been happening to folks of Haitian descent who are very poor there has been happening for a very long time. But now it's elevated to the middle class. Now, if you're an engineer and you can't go anywhere because you can't
get a passport.
You're not a physician. How do you renew your medical license? So I think it's creating some real issues. I think there are well over 200,000 people who are impacted by this. The Organization of American States have decried it and said that this is not right. United Nations has stepped up and said that this is not right.
So where's the
Carrie
U.S.?
Cum stepped up.
Where's the U.S.?
And said that it's not right.
What has been the U.S. response?
The Black Caucus has stepped up and said that it's not right.
The U.S. is busy, you said, Bishop?
So we have not heard from the Secretary of State's office. We have not heard from the President's office. I mean, when I say we, they have not weighed in. I believe there's been some conversations. The President of Haiti has spent a lot of time, I think, trying to build a coalition, because the reality is it is an internal Dominican matter, because that is what it is.
Yes.
It impacts folks of Haitian descent, and so they have been trying to garner support from across the Caribbean in order to be able to at least have one voice. And I believe that the Dominicans are now, there's a question as to whether or not they'll be allowed into CARIC.
Yeah, they're in the application process,
Yeah.
and CARICOM did step up and say, we're suspending your process because this is inherently undemocratic and discriminatory.
Now, who's just CARICOM is?
Sorry, CARICOM is the Caribbean
It's
Common
Caribbean.
Organization. So it's an organization of mostly English-speaking Caribbean countries with Haiti, and some of the other. Dominican Republic has applied to
So
be
the
part of it.
Caribbean nations have organized themselves into CARICOM. A lot of it is for trade and for business purposes.
So have they, just so I get it clear, are they weighing in on this issue of the ruling of the High Court and what the Dominican government, because again, in reading in this court just put the imprimatur
That's right.
on what the political side was attempting to do, even though at different times I was reading about one of the presidents of Dominica who was considered a progressive that turned later into a conservative. We start to use these labels and was promoting this separation, which now led to this particular case. So are you saying that this organization is using its pressures to try to do it, or they're not recognizing that? Because what you're talking about, if you're, and I think there was a book, Man Without a Country, if you're talking about it, you have no travel documents.
That's correct.
You have no travel documents, and if you're saying you're not a citizen in that country, where can these folks go? They can't leave the country.
Not only they
yeah.
don't have travel document, they have no country also.
That's right. That's right.
They have no
Yeah.
country.
Yes.
They're not Dominican, they're not Haitian.
Yeah.
So they're supposed, I don't know if they have to build a plateau somewhere to live, but they can live either in Dominican land, either in Haiti's land.
With that, coming back to, there's three lawyers here, but I want to lay it way on you, Brian, because you're doing work there in the country. What does this mean in the sense of, does this at all, because in a lot of places, land and property ownership are tied to your ability to be citizens in the country. There are many places which say, fine, you can only, if you're not from the country, you can only lease land, you can't own it. I think that's true in Hawaii, for instance, in terms of some of those distinctions. So what does that mean? Has there been any discussion around that, Brian? Have you heard any, or any of you, Bishop or Marie, have you heard any of those inklings as this having an impact in that area?
Yes, the main impact, and some of us would say the main purpose of this, is really to keep Haitians in the Dominican Republic as this kind of exploitable underclass. Because they can't, if you don't have citizenship, you can't own land. But even worse, you can't go to school in many places. You can't access prenatal health services. If you're a pregnant woman, your kids can't access public health services. And so it's really keeping people in a state where they're not able to exercise any of their rights, they're not able to organize, they're not able to learn, and so they're there and most Haitians in the Dominican Republic historically have worked on the sugarcane plantations, and I'm sure you work with a lot of those groups in absolutely brutal conditions. And you can't change that if you can't go to school, if you can't go to court, if you can't own land, if you don't have any of the rights of a citizen.
Even when they work on sugarcane, if their boss decide not to pay them after they work a couple of weeks or months, if they decide he's not going to pay them, he call immigration, get them out. That's the situation there.
What intrigues me, or maybe that's not the right, what annoys me about this would probably be the appropriate word for it, is we talk about our media and the new social media concepts, and in a lot of places we've been able to start, we changed things. They say social media got uprisings in Egypt and other places around the world. I don't hear, this has been if you will, a quiet conversation. Marie, you and I happened to have a conversation about it, and the Boston Banner, I saw the article and it just struck me as odd, but I don't hear the hue and the cry, Bishop. I don't hear, folks trying to get on social media and to raise the issue, what can we do? And I, you know, in a short while, I'm going to have to shift the conversation and take care of a little bit of business. But I want us to begin to start the conversation. Okay, we understand the problems. We understand what has been done. While you won't say it, the U.S. response to this has been less than encouraging. I'll be political in how I state that. But what can we do going forward? I mean, we can talk about the problems and even the things that you're addressing with the cholera epidemic and all of that, Brian. I want us to begin to let's talk about possible solutions to get people thinking about how we might be able to address it. So,
yeah, you know, the social media is actually a good place to start for that, because I mean, it's not at the level of the profile that the demonstrations in Cairo had, but it's actually really starting. And one really interesting video that's gotten, I don't know how many hits it's got, but it's gotten quite a few. It was produced by people from the Dominican Republic who are living in New York. And they, you know, as immigrants to this country, they've been faced with some of the limitations of our own generosity to newcomers and some racial discrimination. So they understand what Haitians in their home country are going through. And they put together a video saying, no, it can't happen here. And really pushing their own government to say that in their name they're going to treat Haitians fairly. And there is a growing movement. I mean, it's not at the point where it's not anywhere any kind of tipping point, but it is growing among Dominicans and Haitians in the U.S. working together. There's actually a big conference tomorrow in the Dominican Republic of Dominicans and Haitians getting together to talk about some of the how they can do internal pressure within the Dominican
And so
Republic.
we're talking about on December 6th, is that the date when you're talking about? December 6th is the date when this is, this conference
When the
is taking
conference is
place?
starting, yes. And there's a bit of it on, you know, you have to look a little bit. It's not going to be in the headline of the, you know, of the Boston Globe, but there are people who are starting to organize and are starting to try to, there's petitions coming out, and there's a letter that actually Marie has a copy of the letter of several grassroots groups to Senator Kerry to try to get, so there is some movement in that direction.
Well, I'm going to have you to hold for one moment. Hold those thoughts. We're going to come back. I have to take care of a little bit of business. But then when we come back, I want to pick this up because I want us to only be a short period of time. I want us to begin to talk about solutions. I want you to talk about, Marie, the letter that was sent. And Bishop, you can talk about some more of these solutions and things that we might be able to do going forward. So we'll be back in a moment on that. These are some of the organizations that my guests are involved with: the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti, fighting for the human rights of Haiti's poor, at www.ijdh.org. Bessie Todd Wilson Initiative for Children, which Reese St. Fleur is the CEO of. Research, Advocacy, and Change, www.btwic.org. And the Bishop's Church, the Voice of the Gospel Tabernacle in Mattapan, Church for the Community. Can contact the Bishop at 857-312-0663 for more information. The crew would like to thank Maxie's Delicatessen, as we do at every community forum program, for what they deliver to us. They're located at 117 Sharon Street in Stoughton. The phone number is 781-341-1662. And for those who don't know where they're located, that's in Cobb's Corner. American Cancer Society is looking for volunteers to drive cancer patients. So those of you who have time and can help provide driving for some of our cancer patients who need to go to treatment, certainly give the American Cancer Society a call at 1-800-ACS-6662 or on their website, www.cancer.org. Ilse Mark's Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market is at the First United Methodist Church. For more information, call Christine Gallagher, 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels. They also would like your driving support. So if you can provide driving to deliver meals to our folks who are homebound, but Meals on Wheels would appreciate it. Give a call, ask for Jessica, and you can reach her at 781-344-8882, extension 2. You better not shout, You better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to Smack. Well, we want you to join us here at Smack on Saturday, December 21st at 12 noon. We're located at 421 Page Street in Stoughton. Love to have you here Saturday. Remember, Saturday, December 21st, 12 noon. Ho, ho, ho. International Forum Show. We're interviewing guests with local roots throughout the world via Skype. The program airs on Sunday at 8:30 p.m., Monday at 11 p.m., Wednesday at 9 a.m., Thursday at 9:30 p.m., and Saturday at 12 noon on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. The best program in the series. Community Forum Showtimes. Stoughton, Thursdays, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m., Monday at 8 p.m., Tuesday at 5 p.m. on Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 28. If you have any comments or suggestions about programming or otherwise, you can reach us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Community Forum Show is also shown in Easton, and those program times are Monday at 9 p.m., Tuesday at 8 a.m., Wednesday at 3 p.m., Saturday at 10 a.m. on Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 22. Again, if you have any comments or suggestions about program or otherwise, you can reach us by email at communityforum1@yahoo.com. And now we're back, and we only have a few moments, and this has been such an engaging conversation. So I want to go right to solutions. Bishop, I want to have you talk about that. Any of you, and then Marie, I want to come back to the letter that was sent. So, any solutions? We've talked about some issues, political, the support not being there from the international community, the lack of the U.S. stepping in, what's going on in Dominica. Any thoughts, Bishop?
My thought would be the good place to start is with the media. If we make the media, we let the world know what's going on in Haiti, what's going on in Dominican Republic with Haitian people, and what's going on among the big organizations, big countries who should step in and say something, who seem to be falling asleep about this issue. So if we have the media in our side, and now we're going out, we let the world know, because anything, if you look at it, anything who gets solution, who get people respond, is when the media put it out. Put it in the people's eyes, people hears, and that's how everybody stop, in French said, you say the word bouger, they start move. And I think that will be a part of the solution.
Brian, we have a few moments, and I want to get to Marie as well. Any comments, thoughts that you may have as to some solutions?
Sure. I'd say at two levels we need to work at. First, the international community needs to empower Haitians. That means supporting the Haitian government's ability to provide basic government services. It includes involving Haitians. Anytime there's a project in Haiti, you involve Haitians in the design and the implementation and the evaluation of the project. And the way that that would happen is that all of us as citizens have a role.
Yes.
And I agree the media is very important, and I think that we are consumers of media, so we can insist that media does shows like this where we're talking about these issues in a serious way. I also think that as donors to organizations and as citizens, we can write to Secretary of State Kerry asking him to stand up for Haitians, people of Haitian descent in the Dominican Republic. We can write to the head to our members of Congress asking them to take stands in favor of Haiti. And what we need to do as citizens, I say two things: stay informed and stay engaged. And that's really how we can help Haiti get to a more prosperous and stable place.
And I'm probably going to leave you with the last words there, Marie, on it. I know we have the letter, so
So
why
I
don't
think
I let you
I
go?
just want to say that I agree with all that's been said, that there was a letter sent to Secretary Kerry. We'd love from HOG, which is the Haitian Action Working Group out of Washington, D.C., collection of all faith-based organizations and activists who have said that there has to be something said on this issue. I think we should also ask the president. We should ask the president, President Obama, Please respond to this issue because we have a lot of people who are suffering and they need your voice on this issue because we have a lot of people in limbo. Writing letters to your delegation. We've informed Senator Warren's office about this. Please call the Boston, your delegation, no matter where it is, the Massachusetts delegation, and ask them to weigh in. Ask them to talk to their Black Caucus colleagues in order to support this issue. The other pieces I want to say is, look, the international community, Americans were very generous, extremely generous during the earthquake, and they're very generous people. I think that what we're asking the regular person who provides a donation is to begin to ask the organizations that you're giving money to, how are they using your money? Are they using it in order to impact sustainable change, transformational change, or is most of it being spent on salaries? Is most of it being spent on utilities, on vehicles, and what have you? Look and see how your money is getting spent. And I would suggest to you that if you're going to spend money in Haiti, no matter who the organization is, you need to ask them if they're walking the walk with the people of Haiti. Are they accompanying them in that walk? And are they doing work that would leave something sustainable? Otherwise, you're going to continue to throw money down a deep and empty well, and we're going to continue to have the same results. In order for the NGOs to change, the donors must change.
Well, I couldn't have asked for a better program. I couldn't ask for a better summation of what can be, because we want to talk about solutions. I am really pleased to have you here today as guest of Community Forum. Marie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brian, thank you very much. Bishop, thank you very much. And I hope that we will be able to have had some impact on the discussion, which will lead to some positive solutions. So again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. This was awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.